Last time on Kombi Life, we drove all the way from Vancouver Island, Canada to Quartzsite, Arizona and bought a 45-year-old Kombi. Yup, without even driving it. In this episode, we are returning to the desert to take a second look at what we've bought and somehow begin the enormous task of turning this vintage Kombi into something capable of driving around the world. It should be easy, right? Back to dusty Quartzsite, Arizona desert country. 6 months has passed since we were here in the summer, and the temperature has dropped about 70 degrees. The town has come alive for the winter, and our new Kombi must be resurrected too. 6 months later, and actually not a lot of progress. You may notice a few differences in the Kombi. Basically, we've stripped everything out. You might be wondering why we would buy a camper van and then strip everything out, and there's a very good reason for that. We're preparing like an expedition vehicle, so we need to be extremely lightweight. We need everything to be multifunctional.
Like, the reason why we got this vehicle mainly was because the rust was really, really good. Like, there was hardly any rust. So we are stripping everything back now. We took the floor out, paint everything to make sure that it's going to last. And that process is going to look a little something like this. Whilst we've got the vehicle completely stripped, we're filling in all the holes that are in the floor with auto body filler. So whilst it's like this, it's really good to just fill up all the holes so we don't get any dust. This helps a lot to keep your mobile home clean so the dust doesn't come up, especially around the wheels where the dust comes up the most.
So what we call in the Kombi, Leah?
Boomerang.
Boomerang.
That's the name.
The new Kombi will be called Boomerang because it is basically going to go around the world.
But boomerang's like come back to where it started, so hopefully it doesn't end up back here in the desert.
Leah getting to know her engine for the first time.
I don't understand this engine at all. It doesn't look familiar to me. Got a lot to learn.
You'll figure it out.
It looks so different to Capito's engine.
See the fan belt?
Yeah. It's not typical that when you buy a vehicle from someone that you end up moving in with them. But that's exactly what happened here. And it turned out that Arizona Bill was a pretty handy guy.
Yeah, I worked for Volkswagen in Grants Pass in the 80s, and they started sending me to schools in Portland because we were in Southern Oregon. So I went to Portland, Riviera, and had a lot of schools and stuff on how to build motors and transmissions. And
Bill literally has a shed load of VW parts that he's been stockpiling for decades, and as he sold us our new Kombi, he kindly agreed to help us get Boomerang started so that we could leave Quartzsite. But as we were about to find out, that was going to be a lot more work than any of us realised. The gas tank needs cleaning. In order to get to that, we have to drop the engine. So we're taking this engine out. This is a mystery motor. We don't really know what kind of condition it's in, so we haven't actually decided what engine we're going to try and drive around the world with. So this is us taking our engine out for the first time on the new bus.
The first time.
The first time, because you know there's going to be more than one time. That's the video.
Easy.
Just trying to chop out our fuel tank at the moment. All of the rubber that is in here is completely corroded. It's stuck on there fast, but if you touch it, it just completely splits. So we found that this piece up here was split. There's another piece over there that's split. So if we hadn't have actually taken this gas tank out and replaced all of this rubber parts, we may have only made it a few miles down the road before the thing caught fire. So this was well worth doing. So whilst we have the Kombi pretty much as naked as it's going to be, we're trying to take care of all of the metal work. Luckily, this bus doesn't have a lot of rust, but we do still want to take care of a couple of things because we're changing up the layout over there. So we're going to be filling in a hole in the floor. Here, traditionally in a Kombi, you would have the spare tyre, but we are actually going to reclaim that space, take out the tyre well here, fill it with a new piece of metal and have a bigger storage area for our batteries so that we can work for longer off-grid. We think this auxiliary battery section down here is the best place for the battery because it's outside of the living quarters, and if there's any huge problems it will vent to the atmosphere.
Luckily, Bill was not the only handy guy on site. A few trailers down, we found John, a guy who'd worked on more cars than we'd had hot dinners. So we hired him to take care of the welding. It was really handy to have John within walking distance and that we didn't have to drive anywhere, mainly because we still couldn't.
Seems a little bit of a shame to be making holes whilst we're filling all the other ones, but this is a preventative measure because this version of the bus didn't come with an access hatch. So we're putting one in so that we can access the fuel sender so that if that ever fails, we'll be able to repair it easily, or if something ever gets into our tank, heaven forbid something would actually get into our tank.
Yes!
Yay! Woo!
Got it? That's true too.
It's a piece of plastic.
There's no saying how many times that we've broken down.
Look at that one little piece of crap.
This will mean that we can easily access our gas tank to service it or check for little pieces of plastic if we run into that problem in the future, and we don't have to take off the entire firewall and drop the entire engine, because that's what we'd have to do in that same situation, but not anymore. Right, bus stripped. Now it's time for sound deadening. Sound deadening is important because you basically don't want to have like road noise, and you're living in the thing, so you need to keep outside noise and ambient noise down to a minimum, and it just makes everything feel more solid when you close doors. They don't kind of sound like tinny doors, and gives you that kind of reassurance that you're living in something solid, even if it is a Kombi.
So for the sound deadening, we're going to use fat mat, which we've researched, and this is probably like the best one for us.
It's a little thicker than other products that are available on the market, so it's actually pretty reasonably priced as well. This whole roll is about 50 square foot, and I think it costs about $100
Yeah.
from Amazon.
But it's worth it because, yeah, with a Kombi it gets pretty noisy. So we're just going to put it in. Some people put it everywhere, but you don't really need to. You can just put them in certain parts of the panels. Especially in areas such as the engine bay and the door panels.
So with this sound deadening product, it's sticky on one side, so you basically cut shapes to fit the panels, the metal panels. You need to fit this directly onto the metal panel, and it's surface contact with the sound deadening material which cuts basically the road noise and the ambient noise down.
So one of the main things that we wanted to soundproof was the engine bay, because that's where a lot of the noise comes from, the noisy VW engine. So what we have here is the firewall, which sits between the engine and the fuel tank. And we've put just patches of the sound deadening material, because you don't need to do the whole thing. It works just fine having about 30% covered.
Which is nice because the stuff's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But this one doesn't have, this is from another bus. So I wonder what the difference is if we can actually see if it's audible.
Yeah. So you do yours first. And with such a big difference.
Holy moly!
No.
And again? What?
That's awesome.
So as you can imagine, as the engine rattles and basically all the vibrations from the road noise go through the bus, large pieces of metal like this sound and carry those acoustics around and make it actually really, really loud. So putting this rattle trap stuff, this sound deadener on all of the large pieces of metal is going to make a huge difference. I can't wait to see what this is like when we finish. Work continued as we prepared for the engine to go back in, but despite having bought our Kombi as a running bus, we all know that there are no guarantees with a 45-year-old vintage Volkswagen, and unsurprisingly, upon closer inspection, our untrusty steed was not at all ready for the road. However, Bill was kind enough to get to work putting the problems right, and we came to an agreement. We'd give him back the engine that had come with the bus if he could get one of his spare motors working and lend it to us so that we could drive to an engine builder. In the meantime, it looked like we'd be calling Split Rail RV Park home for a little while longer. So this is the workspace that we've been working in, which is conveniently right next to this camper where we have been living. I can't tell you how great it is to be able to work on site and actually get up in the morning and get straight to work and, you know, be productive. We are very blessed to be able to be here at Split Rail RV Park. If you guys are passing Quartzsite, I highly recommend you pop in. It's a little bit messy, as is our lives. But this is our workspace. No, this is our living space. Yes, it's very difficult, and I get them confused because, well, basically they're one and the same thing. But this small camper is where we're living currently. Alaska, Leah and I. We sleep in the top bunk. Alaska sleeps in the bottom bunk. Sometimes she's allowed in bed. We have a little cooking space. And even air conditioning if we happen to be here and it's summer, which better not happen because we have to get this done before then.
We have both travelled a lot and spent thousands of nights on the road, but rarely have we been in a campsite, and never in an RV park. This was the first time that we had been welcomed into a community like this.
My name is Mel Molstead. I'm the manager of Split Rail RV Park. We have 7 acres here our campground sits on. And when people live together on 7 acres, when you get, I would say, 120 people here, you become family. You all become pretty close. And you visit with each other, you communicate with each other, you do things together sometimes, and you do things separately. But it's like having a family. We gather here in the rec hall, and we have our Wednesday night meals. And the other activities we have here are centered around making this a family, so everybody can get together and have a good time. You guys have been an addition to the park. It's going to be exciting to see something that I've seen here for quite some time sit on the property being used for an excellent purpose. That sounds like an exciting journey to me. People have been quite anxious to see those buses back there leave the property. So it'll be nice to see the journey that goes on.
Unfortunately, that wasn't going to happen anytime soon.
Already my least favourite part of the bus. We've been spending the last week or so basically prepping the engine area and cleaning it all up and painting it, just to protect all the metal that was exposed and to make it roughly the same colour as the Kombi maybe in the future. We've also been working on the tank because unfortunately our old tank was in a really bad condition, so we thought we'd just buy a bunch of chemicals, acid and stuff, chuck it in, swill it around and throw it out, but unfortunately that's not really what happens. We probably spent as much fixing it, half as much as a new tank would have been. So if you ever have to fix an old tank so you've left it too long, I highly recommend that you just buy a new one. It would have saved a lot of time. This is our tank now that we'll be going back in, and we're just hoping it doesn't cause us any further problems.
We've been in Quartzsite now for about 3 weeks, and it's been over the Christmas period, which has been really, really hard this year. And usually we're away from family and friends, but this year in particular it was quite hard. Even though everyone has been really lovely here in the trailer park, there was so much going on with the build and getting everything organised to get here that we just completely forgot about Christmas and New Year's, and not making an effort and being just so like stressed and away from family and friends, and in an unknown place, dusty place. But hopefully it's all worth it, because the bus is going to be great at the end of it.
It will all be worth it, but at this point the end was not in sight. Our plans had already changed significantly. We had thought that we'd drive straight out of Quartzsite, but 1 month on, we're further behind than when we started. Time is fast ticking away on our short visa, and without our own wheels, we're putting an unfair burden on the people around us. We should have left by now, but we still have a long ways to go. And that stress is fast beginning to show. But that is a story for next time.